Welcome to the Sharpest College Football Podcast, our Sun Belt Conference preview. We have a very special guest, I guess a recurring guest, one of our experts that we reach out to when we want to help a deep dive on some of the less obvious parts of college football, although he knows the obvious parts too. I am BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. We are joined once again by Josh on Twitter, CFFGuys. Give him a follow. Josh, great to see you again. Hope you have had a good off season and all is well with you.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. It's just good to be back in the college football season. Camps start up here. I think Hawaii even maybe started up already. So it's just good to have college football back in our life. And I'm excited for this podcast.
That's right. As we record this on the 23rd of July, we are literally exactly 1 month away from the season opening on August 23rd, if I have my dates correct. Yeah, of course. Somehow the traditional.
Yes. Football.
Don't remind Florida State fans.
Very fair. All right. Just to let everybody know, we're making PDFs of the preview decks available. If you want a PDF to refer to throughout the season, go ahead and just leave your email address in the YouTube comments, or you can just reach out to me on, I still call it Twitter, at BuckMetrics, and I will grant you access. And you can just, I don't know, refer to this. It'd be pretty cool. Circulate it to your friends. Show how smart, if not you are, the people that you listen to are. This is our glossary. These are the metrics that we refer to throughout the conference previews and throughout the season. So you might just want to take a snapshot of this and refer back to it if you want to just make sure that you're getting the gist of everything. And with that, we will go Sun Belt overview. This is basically all the teams in order of last year's power rankings by my model. We have new head coaches this year at Marshall, App State, and Southern Miss for very different reasons between all three. That'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll touch on that. To me, this looks like a weak quarterback conference. I don't know if that's too controversial. If I look at the apex here, there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of red. And there's only two guys in triple digits here. So I think that'll be very informative of this season. Also a lot of red here in defense in terms of returning talent. And I think that's just a fact of life of being a P5 conference. P5? We're at 5, right? Yeah, 5.5, I guess. We're going to include our Pac buddies. That's the modern Pac 5.5 today. Robert, anything else stand out to you in terms of the overview of this conference?
Nothing particular. I just want to call attention to that nice, cool negative 26 power rating for Southern Miss. That's an achievement.
Yeah.
Good thing they just stole the actual coaching staff and personnel. So
yeah. Pretty much the good parts of the roster, too. Yeah, Southern Miss gave Kent State a run for their money last year in terms of just bad football all around. I don't know. At least Southern Miss had a little tougher schedule. No excuse for being that bad in the MAC. That's a rough pull. Our previews are going to be in Phil Steele order, which means we're going to break it down by division. So first we'll do the Eastern Division. Phil has the James Madison Dukes winning the East. Don't think that's too controversial. Second season under Bob Chesney. Josh, you did the Sun Belt with us last year, and I remember saying I liked the hire, but I was concerned about a lot of FCS guys coming in. And my God, he made it work. They didn't win the division, but they were a lot better than I thought, especially in a post-Signetti situation here. Alonzo Barnett, I have in the top tier of SBC quarterbacks, basically him and somebody that we'll talk about in the West. Apparently, he's still recovering from injury, so I don't know if he'll be back and if he's going to be 100%, because I think it was a knee or a lower body injury. We'll figure that out. They had clearly the best defense in the Sun Belt by my metrics. It wasn't even close. I mean, just a defensive power rating of that in this conference is really going to stand out. I've got a good defense. I've got clearly a proven coach now. Chesney was very successful at Holy Cross, and you've got, we hope, a good quarterback here. Season win total is 8.5. As I look at the schedule here, I see tough ones against Louisville and Liberty. That Washington State game is weird. Washington State, I don't want to say they bit off more than they can chew, but they're going to be chewing a lot of what they bit off this year. I think the 8.5 is fairly valued with a lot of money going to the under. I think, if anything, we might be looking at over here. I think this is pretty much the best team in the Sun Belt Conference. I don't know. I don't want to say it's a one-horse race, but I think that this would be the post-time favorite. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it could depend on Alonzo Barnett's health. Ultimately, I think we're expecting him to really take a second-year leap. He did, like you mentioned, he tore his ACL in that final game against Marshall that he played. And look, the coach today came out and said at the Sunbelt Media Days that it's a 9-month recovery. He's on schedule, maybe a little bit ahead. So he's not going to be cleared for contact for camp. but he should be cleared by the season. I don't know, man. Matthew Sluka will get the start, which was Chesney's quarterback at Holy Cross for 2 or 3 years there. So there's familiarity there. And if Sluka can't really do it, then I think Barnett comes in by conference play and he takes over, and I think he'll lead them. Look, I think Chesney's proven that he can reload for sure the losses that they have on this team. One thing with Alonze Barnett and Matthew Sluka, Barnett is coming off of that injury like we talked about, but I think he's going to be back, and Chesney picked him as the Sun Belt all first team quarterback. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, the media picked him as the QB1 on the all Sun Belt team, and Chesney had to be the one that put him up there. So Chesney must be confident that he's coming back, so I think we should be confident as well.
Yeah, I like what's interesting about Sluka, and this is not, I hate to detour a little this, but you seem to be more in tune on these kind of angles than Robert or I. And by the way, appreciate it only took me, what is this, July? So it's taken me 9 months to get the proper pronunciation of Alonze Barnett. I'm good at crunching the number and seeing a name pronunciation. I'm a little slow on, so thank you for that. Well, the whole Matthew Sluka to UNLV thing and how that turned out is fascinating to me, in that I'm a huge Brendan Marion fan, and I think the guy's a genius. I want Bruce Feldman's next book to be, where did he come up with this offense? Because he's been all over the place, and I don't really know. He had to have dreamt this offense up. Not the topic for here, but I'm a huge Brendan Marion fan. And the fact that you had a good guy that was so good in another system comes and just absolutely flops under an exceptional OC just fascinates me. And I think, I didn't even mention it, but I think that really could be like the fail-safe here, if you will, for this program. It's like, okay, we'll go to a guy that literally had FBS teams wanting this guy, because it wasn't like he settled on UNLV. There were a few people that were after him when he left Holy Cross, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I actually, oddly enough, have a weird contact with Matthew Sluka's family. So
yes,
I heard all about this whole deal, and there's several teams, even this offseason, teams like the Florida Gators were interested in Sluka and offering him 6-figure deals.
Yes. And when I hear, okay, this is funny, this is a little off topic, but if there's one team I was going to mention in a weird way, it shouldn't be Florida, given the whole Jaden Rashada thing and the parallels to what happened to him at UNLV. I think Florida would just kind of go to the back of the line, stare at their shoes, and be quiet on this one. But no, they actually...
They went after him. Yeah, I mean, Sluka has this weird deal where he gets these, Kansas State wanted him to be a backup for Avery Johnson. So there's something about this guy that people love, but apparently when he gets there, he's not good enough to be the guy or whatever. And look, that whole thing was a mess at UNLV. I think there's a lot more dysfunction there that needs to be talked about. But look, Sluka gives you a good baseline at quarterback as far as a runner, right? Is he gonna pass the ball? No. But look, they could, for that first 4 weeks, they could run the triple option and probably win most of those games until Alonze Barnett comes back, and then I think Alonze is the guy for sure because he can do both of those things.
Yeah, I don't think they're beating Louisville, but to your point, I don't think that the quarterback position is pivotal in those first 4 games. They'll win the ones they win and they lose the ones that they lose. Who's at quarterback?
Yeah.
Robert, are you as optimistic as Josh and I about
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. This team is just very slowly becoming a very solid FBS team. We remember a couple years ago when this team first broke into FBS, and we were like, we loved them back a couple years ago. We loved betting on them, and we were so sad when they didn't get to go to that bowl game. We were kicking the crap at every other team in the league if they don't get to go to a bowl game. And it's great. Now we're seeing this is now these are it's like our child. It's like now they're going off and they're going to win the division now. It's great. I mean, we were obviously worried a lot last year after Eddie went to Indiana. Not for him, obviously. We thought he'd do well, but he would outperformed our expectations. And Chesney did great here in JMU. Again, this is not a particularly difficult conference. Should have pretty strong reign over this division, and I think they're going to be definitely very competitive in this division. But yeah, I like what they're doing. They didn't even really have to rebuild that much after the year before, after losing all the talent to Indiana. They reloaded, and they might be really stacked this year. Yeah.
I think were they in line to actually win the East until they lost to Marshall in that last game of the season, or had they
I'm
kind
gonna
of like
go with
already?
yes because they would have been 10 and no, they would have been 10-2, I think, or no.
Yeah, but they had two conference losses. That's what I'm trying to look up here. So it's weird that they had these bad losses to App and ULM. Like
Yeah.
that kind of helps in a tiebreaker losing to garbage teams, especially outside your that one that's outside your division. So I think they were in line because Marshall lost a couple games last year. Did they not in conference?
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're right. I
So
think they were in line to
yeah,
go
Georgia
if they would have
Southern.
won.
Yeah,
App State's one of those rivalry games for JMU that it doesn't matter the records. App State's going to bring their best against JMU and just got them. But yeah,
yeah.
JMU,
Oh,
it's a good
yeah.
program.
Yeah, they're committed. Clearly, they hire well, and they're one of the. I think they're like the. How do I say it? The. And this is going to sound horrible. I love the Sun Belt. They're, I think, the lowest level team in terms of conference with a substantial student athletics fee.
Yep,
Does that make
that's right.
sense? Yeah.
It's
Okay.
yeah, it's $2,000 per
Jesus.
student, and they had the 60. I think it's a 65th highest like revenue or budget or whatever among teams, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just the way that they've done it is really good at JMU. They set it up well, and they're doing a good job, putting themselves in a position, I think, to continue to climb the G5 ranks.
Yeah. All right, boy. Next one, just team number 2 here. Phil and I are going to just arm wrestle over this. I'm loaded for bear against Phil's argument here. Grab my laser pointer here. First thing that sticks out here is significant good luck last year for Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern went 8-5 last year. They lost their bowl to Sam Houston, so they were 8-4 in the regular season. So 2.5 games of that were good luck by my metrics. I actually had them as the lowest rated, lowest power rated team in the East. A bad analog, a decent analog would be Oklahoma State going into last year, where people thought they were good, and I had the red flags flying back and forth to say no, they're not that good. AC French, look at 83 Apex in your first year starting in the Sun Belt is not horrible, but to be the second place team in a Sun Belt division, I'm looking for a little more. Then I've got all these metrics in terms of where they ranked last year. Ninth in Apex Plus in the conference, 13 in GGAB Plus. Average in passing, not surprising for a Clay Helton team. Horrible at running the ball. Defensively, a little bit below average in pass defense, just basically average in run defense. This team is nowhere near as good, and I'm not going to make it personal against my co-host and our guest here. They're nowhere near as good as Phil thinks. Now, if you guys want to side with Phil, great. We can talk that out here and be friends afterwards. This week 1 game at Fresno State is really interesting to me. Mountain West is probably a little bit a cut above the Sun Belt. You've got Matt Entz, who I believe, Josh, you would know this better than me, has 2 national titles on his resume. Does that sound right? At North Dakota
Yeah,
State?
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Now, he didn't build that, but he didn't screw that up either. Unlike the guy who will be across the field from him, Clay Helton, who inherited an all-time class from Steve Sarkisian and just slowly sucked the life out of that program. MGM Sports has the total at 7.5 for wins, with the undertaking some money wisely. I still think this team is overvalued. I don't know if it's bettable, but if I look at Fresno State and USC, oh yeah, you can guarantee I'm going to be watching that game closely as a USC guy. I think I've got 2 losses to start with. That doesn't leave a lot of leeway here for any more losses here. They're not going to lose. I don't want to go through the whole schedule here. They won't lose these next 2. But I think there are a lot of games the market is seeing as shaded towards Georgia Southern that are at best coin flips for them. So I don't think they finish second. If they get to 8 wins, it will not be with my backing financially. I cannot be objective about this. Obviously, Robert, you're Canadian. You're the North American version of the Swiss here, just being neutral. Am I being too hard on Clay Hilton here?
No, this Georgia Southern team, not just last year, but in the last few years, it's been very hard to kind of figure out what the heck this team is. Again, this is the team that like 100% got frost fired in Nebraska when that lost to Nebraska. So like you're now again, we at the time we talk about this, it seems like a great accomplishment, but maybe not the greatest accomplishment because again, it is Scott Frost. But again, that is something that they accomplished. They took down a Big Ten team. But last year they lost to Boise State and Mississippi, 2 playoff teams. They lost to them pretty handily. They were competitive with Boise. But yet they lost to Troy, and they somehow beat Marshall. and James Madden. So I don't understand how you can square those things together. I don't fully understand how you can square that. Yeah, we lost horrible teams, but we beat the two of the best teams in the conference. So we're middle. I guess I really don't understand it. I'm gonna bet on based on just the track record I've seen, and since basically Clay Helton's taken over, they've basically been about a 500 team. I'm going to guess that maybe just last year they performed a little bit. Maybe they probably shouldn't have beaten Marshall or JMU, and if they don't win those, then they're a very pedestrian 5-7. I think that sounds about right. So that's where I put this. I think maybe they just got a little bit of positive regression there, and that's it.
Yeah, I wonder if basically what Phil Steele did was say, hey, they have some of the highest returning production in the conference, and they went 8-5. So I'm just gonna roll it over to the next year. But to your point, that 2.4 luck rating goes. They overachieved last year, so it would make sense that they would bounce back. And look, they're gonna get worked by Fresno State. Fresno State is gonna have a great run game, and we saw what Boise State did to them last year with a great run game, right, with Ashton Genty and Sire Gaines when Sire Gaines was healthy. So I'm with you. They're going to lose that first game on the road. They're going to stay out on the West Coast, get whooped by USC, and then come back, and they should beat Jacksonville State, but who knows?
I know. Even Clay Helton will win that one. Jacksonville State's in for a rough season.
Yeah, you're right. I do think Georgia Southern and Clay Helton, they're just overrated. I think you're absolutely right here.
Is there – let me frame it this way. If I'm looking to bet against them a lot, I'll frame it that way because that's the mindset here. I don't think I have to worry much about J.C. French really shoving it in my face. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I don't think so at all. Look, he's just average. He's a jag. And just so are their wide receivers, right? So is their running. Everything about their system, they lost some key players, I think. And I don't think they're replacing them with guys that are going to all-world beaters.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I feel better now. In fairness to Clay Helton, he did do the heavy lift of moving them from the triple option to whatever they are now in a 500 fashion. He did better than Jeff Collins? ? All right.
That's
one. Don't have as much here on this, although this was kind of cathartic to me. I didn't really pay much attention to ODU last year. I was not aware Colton Joseph had such an impressive season, especially fantasy guy like you would appreciate. 95 Apex is solid for this conference. The 647 rushing yards. Look out. I like that. They had actually the top opponent-adjusted running game last season in the Sun Belt. Now, this is a problem. You only have basically 10, a composite 10 yards above basically replacement level in your total wide receiver and tight end room. That's a problem. The good news is it's not like there's a bunch of finished products in this conference, so there's a path to go upperly mobile in a hurry. And I scrubbed hard, and I didn't really... Well, here, they have a 0 of Ryan coming through the portal. I didn't even see anything that looked promising from an FCS standpoint. Okay, you're agreeing, Josh. Concerning, considering Ricky Ronnie and how much, I don't know, we fell in love with him at Penn State about the good work that he did there. He's not pulling it, which is weird in terms of the offensive talent. A little concerning, too, is for a couple of years, I think, now the strength has been more, it wasn't necessarily the case, but a couple of years ago, the defense really was the strength behind this team. It's above average last year. Season win total, 6.5, with a lot of money going to the under. I don't like laying 160, so I think that this is probably undervalued. It's weird. I love the upside of this second-year quarterback that threw the ball better than J.C. French considerably, and he can run the ball too. But the question is, to who? You were nodding, agreeing with me, Josh, as I was going through that. The answer is to basically, guys like the three of us on this podcast?
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Half these guys, if I said their names, there's no way any of us would even know them. I mean, I don't know if they just had to spend all their NIL money, if they have any, on Colton Joseph to get him to stay. But they really surround him with not much talent. So I'm very curious. Kevin Decker, the OC, I think is pretty good. But he's going to have to really rely on Colton Joseph to pull the weight. I think particularly on the ground, right? We saw they had 647 yards rushing. He's one of the better quarterbacks in college fantasy football over the last 6 weeks of the season. So you're hoping he can do that throughout the season. He also, they have a backup that's actually pretty good too at running the ball. So they can afford to run the ball both with the main guy, and then also that, again, Quinn Hinekel is the backup to Colton Joseph. He can come in and he can also run the ball. So they can run the same system with either guy, but they're going to be depending a lot on their quarterbacks to basically carry the load on this offense. And then, like you've smartly pointed out, and then rely on the defense to really win games.
Yeah. Robert, as a Big Ten guy, I guess the question is, how offended is Old Dominion that Indiana did not drop them from their schedule then? Seeing as that's what Cignetti said at Media Day.
Yeah, it's got to sting a little bit. That you are that bad. No, Colton Joseph was okay in a 95 apex. 647 rushing yards is not bad, but you're not really like, oh wow, a 95 apex. Yes, it is the Sun Belt, but you wish that'd be a little bit higher. But the O-line looks not bad. The defense looks not bad. Bit of negative luck last year, but again, only a 5-7 record, right? It's just, yeah, maybe this team will win some games, but maybe no. This is not their year. This is not their year. They'll be competitive in some games. Maybe they could cause an upset here or there. This might be a bit of a value play, but I don't see it for this year.
Man, look at those non-conference games. They're like paying the bills for the entire athletic department here. Indiana and Virginia Tech and Liberty. Liberty, geez, if you got those other two, pick a different Conference USA team than Liberty, guys. My gosh. I think, and Liberty's got the money to actually probably pay them a good amount, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay, this will be an interesting team. Yeah, maybe Colton Joseph will be a portal guy next year. Hate to jinx it, but I'm usually pretty good at those calls. All right. This is where it starts to get really interesting and tough to tear these teams up in this division here. We have App State, the Mountaineers. Change the page here. A disappointing 5-6. Yeah, they had a game canceled. Does that mean that they were... Was their game against Liberty canceled? Was that the one that was... Because I remember Liberty had a game that was canceled too.
Yeah, it may have been that game.
Okay. They had been trying with Sean Clark, I think, who was the coach there. I don't know. I'm not a fan of these internal hires that are after internal hires. I think it's kind of like you read about these third generations of wealth that lose it all from what great grandpa made. I think what happened here. You just get stale and you I don't know. You turn into the worst version of Dabo Sweeney, if you will. So they bring in Dowell. I'm going to butcher this name. I guess it's Dowell Logains, who was awesome at South Carolina, replacing the much maligned Marcus Satterfield at South Carolina. Now here's the bad news. He doesn't have Lenore Sellers at quarterback. He's got basically not even a lesser version or a poor man's version. He's got nothing resembling him in A.J. Swan. It was at Vanderbilt. Where else didn't he play before that? I forget. Didn't he play some other place too? Okay, yeah. Clearly did not distinguish himself there at LSU. They just absolutely got crushed in the portal, and I guess it's interesting. They lost almost 1,000 Ryan yards in the portal. You can see that happening with a new coach, but a guy who did such a good job at South Carolina, it's interesting. I think I'm a little concerned because this is a first-year head coach, and when you see that, it doesn't signal to me that this guy's going to hit the ground running and just win 10 games in his first year. So you've got this inexperienced quarterback who's really not distinguished himself at all before. You've got an inexperienced offensive line in year one. The defense is light on experience. They were bottom 3 in the conference last year. Season win total's 5.5 with the undertaking money. I think they're still overvalued. The only thing I can say that's really in the favor of this team is that, okay, Logan's is an unknown. Maybe he's better, although I don't like losing 1,000 yards to the portal. And I don't like the combination of a first-year head coach with a bad quarterback. We did a little episode on that, and 10 of the 12 underperformers last year had that same exact situation, first-time head coach and a weak-looking quarterback position. Now, the good news is they're in a division where there's a lot of winnable games, even if you've got as many question marks as here. So I don't think I'm playing this because there's so many question marks through the rest of the division here. Rob, I'll send it here to you. Do you see anything that distinguishes them from the rest of the division that we have still yet to talk about, positively or negatively?
Yeah, it's not good. We don't remember the 2023 Vanderbilt team positively in any way. And that was the quarterback. Not great. That's a problem. Offensive line, a little weak. Not much to talk about there. Lots of Brian lost in the transfer portal. Defense also not good. First time head coach. Or I'm not sure if he was an FCS coach or not. I can't remember. Oh, NFL or quarterback coach for 5. So he's never actually been a head coach before. He's coaching experience, but not
Yeah.
a head coach before. Yeah, that's not great. This doesn't look good. I'm gonna probably not play this because minus 155 is a bit high. But yeah, this is gonna be a fade. I mean, I think they're actually the favorite against Charlotte. That maybe is a bit aggressive. We'll have to
Oh
see. That
boy.
game might be interesting. Let me check that actually.
Yeah. I was going to throw it to you, Josh, on that. Do you think that they might actually have some kind of problem with Charlotte? Higher conference, but definitely at the bottom of that higher conference.
Yeah, I think they could. It's hard to say with Charlotte. Their coach is, I think, better
It's a
than
proven
Loggins,
coach.
right? Like Tim Albin, he's a good coach. It's a fun system that he runs. So I don't know. I'm still wondering. They just lost Don Chaney. Charlotte did at running back. So I'm not sure who they're gonna be rolling out there necessarily. So it could be just a year 1 or year 0 rebuild basically for Charlotte, which could be worse than App State, but maybe not. Because I don't know what App State's bringing to the table. I'm not sold on Loggins as a coach. Personally, I think what made South Carolina look good was the fact that they had
Yeah.
Lenora Sellers.
Yes.
He's going to make anybody look good. I think I'm not sold on Loggins. I did not the offense that he ran 2 years ago at South Carolina. I don't know, man. There's not a lot. I wasn't very inspired with his hire. The fact that he hasn't hired an OC, which means that he's going to try to be a head coach and an OC. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You've never done this before.
Yeah.
You didn't recruit well. And App State is a team that you would think, like JMU, would have some resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a name to be able to recruit. So all of these things do not boast well for Dow Loggins in his first year.
I'll point out the spread. The spread is Charlotte plus 8.5 at Charlotte.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I mean, can they be that much more dire than this? There's not a lot here, and they do have a coach.
Yeah.
2 questions for you, Josh, to wrap up with the Mountaineers here. You said repeatedly that you're not sold on the head coach. Fair to say that's the same about the quarterback?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I might be more sold on the backup quarterback, AJ Cole. He's coming over from Iowa State.
Yes.
And he was a 4-star recruit coming out. I know they were real excited about Iowa State back in the day. Back in the day, 2 years ago. I don't know. It's hard to know when you haven't seen a kid play at the college level. But I think he's a kid that actually has more potential. So maybe AJ Swan starts and then Cole takes over. Cole's not young. I think he's a redshirt sophomore. So we'll see. And if he's not starting, then that's not a good sign for him or for AJ Swan.
Yeah. The other question, if this goes as is possible, I won't say probable or even likely, but I'm going to say that there's at least a 15% chance that coaching this program in 2028 will be Scott Satterfield. Is that fair?
That would be incredible. Do the Scott Frost move at UCF.
Oh man, come on. That's
Don't take the wrong job. Don't take the wrong job.
Yeah. Don't take the wrong jobs. Plural.
Yeah.
All right. This is where, I don't know, stuck in the traffic jam that is the bottom of this division here. Coastal Carolina by our dear beloved friend Tim Beck, who's just doing Tim Beck magic for this once proud program. I don't get it, but whatever. You might remember, Robert, last year. I don't say we believed in this team, but we thought they were going to be maybe good when we were expecting Jacksonville State to be good out of the gate last year. And Coastal just crushed Jacksonville in that opener, and they peaked. Their quarterback, that was it. It was all down here from them. Ethan Vasco, the quarterback, has gone to Liberty, which we talked about. That's probably a goodish move. Not a goodish move. MJ Morris from Maryland and his gaudy apex of 7. That would be single digits, 2 hands, 7. The O-line does return the most starts in the Sun Belt, which, congratulations, that means you're probably in for a lot of boring offense from Tim Beck. The Ryan got... Oh, shoot, sorry. Ignore that note. That's from the prior team. Okay. I was clearly tired when I did this one. All right, ignore those 2 bullet points. Average defense by Sunbelt standards here of negative 2.6 power rating. They have a low improvement metric and not a lot of returning starts, so that probably takes a step back. Season win total is 5.5 with the under taking some money. If I look out of conference here, they get Virginia and East Carolina, which should be a challenge for them. And for good measure, they take on South Carolina on the SEC's, what do they call that, weekend off, or like the weekend away, or SoCon Sunday, whatever they call it. That looks going 3 to me. 5.5, sure. Boy, that quarterback downgrade is just a huge concern for me now. Yeah, MJ Morris is going to find it easier in the Sun Belt compared to Big Ten. He better with an apex of 7. So I don't really have a lot that I can hang my hat on here. I don't think it's bettable because, again, they're stuck in this mess at the bottom of the East here. But even in that context, I find more reasons to really not like this program than anything. But what do you think, Josh?
Yeah, and look, when Tim Beck's your head coach, I'm just out on you. I've never been a Tim Beck guy, never since, just a long time. We don't have to get into it. But look, is repeatedly proved. Even, okay, you're bringing in Drew Hollingshead as your OC, and then you bring in MJ Morris. What are we? These things don't fit together. Like, I don't understand. Tim Beck just, like, some people just don't know how to put things together. Maybe he was a good play caller at one time in his life, but that ship has sailed. He's not a program.
In another lifetime? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I missed it. Wasn't this lifetime?
Like, just trying to be nice to the guy. But you're talking about a team that got crushed by UTSA in the bowl game, and they're returning 31% of their defensive returning production. Like, they're just going to get smashed, and they're not going to have the offense to come back on the other side. They just don't have the talent to be able to score a team. It's going to be hard for them to win 6 games and get to a bowl again.
Yeah, especially when out the gate you're not going to win. There's 3 non-conference games you're just not going to win. You're just not before you get to even think what might be winnable within conference. Your point about the pieces not matching up, I think that's a fact of life for your typical coach in this conference. That's why I think Chesney was able to succeed. Maybe he took kids that weren't exactly the best athletes for this conference, but he knew that they would fit with what he's doing.
Yep.
And I think you're seeing the opposite here. Ooh, Maryland, Big Ten. This guy's going to crush it here. So, yeah, bad news, Tim Beck. It's not going to happen. Unless Robert says it is. Are you going to back Tim Beck and his magic?
No, I'm not going to. A 7 apex is terrifying. No matter if he was an NFL quarterback, sure, okay, but he wasn't playing in the NFL. It was just the Big Ten for a game or 2. No, that's very concerning. Again, this team is just weird similarity to Georgia Southern. Like, okay, they destroy Jacksonville State in the season opener. A team that eventually, I think, they won the Conference USA.
Yeah,
they crushed them in that game, and then they lose to Troy. They actually weirdly beat that same Georgia State team, and then they lose a bunch of other games they should have won. So, again, just a very weird thing. And that was with a quarterback who was actually decent. That's a quarterback who got transferred to Liberty. I do not trust MJ Morris. I'm actually just going to pre-attack Maryland right now. I don't think Maryland is particularly good, basically, since Tagovailoa went off. So I'm not trusting their product right now. We're going to talk about Maryland in another podcast. But, I'm out on them as well. Yeah, I'm not really believing in this team very much. Yeah, I think the 5.5 is probably about right. I wouldn't probably bet under that, but yeah, that's a number you should be looking at and just not really believing in this team very well.
Yeah, I know. I look. There's 2 ways to interpret this number right here about you've got a lot of returning starts and a good improvement metric on the offensive line. If I see that at like Western Michigan, all right, I can believe in Lance Taylor building a good culture. I interpret that like nobody wants these guys. Nobody's even like trying to poach them. And they're just good enough to start, and I don't like what that portends. So, appreciate you guys nodding in agreement here. Okay. Tim Beck, sorry if you're listening. You probably are not, hopefully, but better luck in your next line of business here. Okay. I find things towards, this bottom part here of the division, and look, this is not a certain thing, but I can see reasons for a path to really couch it in a very couched way. Del McGee was not put in a good position last year. I think he came in. Did he come in after spring practice, Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
their
tough
head
for a
coach
quarter.
left.
Yeah, to be like a position coach in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
That's right.
That's tough for a quarterback. That's impossible for a head coach. And he was from outside the program, too, because he's the running backs coach at Georgia.
Correct.
I think we made a joke in last year's podcast about running backs coaches not being good head coaches. Does that ring a bell?
We did.
My jinx. This team 3-9. I don't think they were as horrible as their 1-loss record. And as I say that, I look at their luck here. They had 2 games of bad luck, so that backs that up. I'm not a huge fan of the quarterback, but you can do, and a lot of teams do worse than him. What does concern me is I've got a low apex for him, and the top returning wide receiver in the Sun Belt by Ryan in Ted Hurst, which means that if it's not this guy, this quarterback really stinks. Maybe he can improve in his second and a half year starting. I guess he got some starts at Pittsburgh, Mr. Villieu. The offensive line, inexperienced again, but it can't be as tough as last year. Even then, you didn't have a spring practice under this coach. You're inexperienced on the defense, and it wasn't a good defense. They were horrible against the run. But I think you're bound to see some improvement in year 2 here. What did I say here? They only have 3 Sun Belt opponents are rated lower than them last year. So their schedule's tough in that regard, if that makes sense. They're looking up from last year's power ratings at basically all but 3 opponents in conference. Now, but again, you didn't have a spring practice under this guy. 3.5, I say it's reasonably valued. The intangibles here I think are with the Panthers. I think there's just a lot more upside that I don't know. If you're going to say here's $100, you can back Georgia State or Tim Beck. I'm going with this program because I see there's pieces here to hat your hat onto. And you seem to be nodding in vigorous agreement here. So you go ahead, John. What do you think about the Panthers here?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Look, if you're going to be a running back coach that gets a head coaching job, you better recruit some good running backs. And I don't know if they're good, but they're intriguing, right? So you have Rashad Amos, who ran for 1,000 yards a couple of years ago in the MAC. And then he went to Ole Miss, and he was punching above his weight and didn't get much playing time. He goes to Memphis for a little bit, and then he transfers to Georgia State. So he's interesting. And then you got Branson Robinson comes in over from Georgia, who was a huge recruit when he was coming out of high school and then had injuries. And then Dontavius Braswell was actually a recruit for South Carolina, 4-star running back. So you got talent in that backfield. And then, Jordan Simmons, who I believe he was at Akron and had a pretty good run of it at Akron, went to Ole Miss this offseason and spent the spring there and then hit the transfer portal and go to Georgia State. And Jordan Simmons was one of the most explosive running backs last year in all of America. So there's intrigue there in that backfield. And I just wonder, can they put something together and have a decent offense, especially with what you mentioned, Ted Hurst. And then they had a tight end that was pretty good. I believe he went to, I think he went to Maryland actually, but transferred up to the Power 4. And Leo Blackburn's coming. He's from Georgia Tech and transfers in. He's a bigger guy, like Ted Hurst is 6'5". So you have big targets, which is what you want for a quarterback that's probably not very good. And I don't know, there's just pieces here that to me, they kind of make sense. And I think Hugh Jackson can probably at least call a decent offense with some talent. So I'm intrigued by what Del McGee's putting together with the pieces. They could all just be retreads from the P4, but they at least had talent at some point. And if you can get it out of them, they could outplay this 3.5 win total.
Yeah, the thing too, again, boy, another instance of these guys are just paying everybody's bills in the athletic department. Mississippi, Memphis, and Vanderbilt, 2 SEC teams, because one isn't enough, guys. Jeez, that's a rough start. Yeah, Josh and I reasonably intrigued in seeing a path. Robert, do you think that this might be like the one from the bottom that has a little bit of white space in front of it to advance?
I can see something here. Maybe it's the thing is, again, you need the coach to really start building his own program. And yeah, last year was not good, but again, that's expected because it was a rebuilding year completely, and they did lose a lot last year as well. But I think there's a way this team could we could get this team to a bowl probably. I could see a path to a bowl. Much past that, I can't really see, but there's definitely a path to a bowl here. And it would have to be, you need massive improvement across pretty much the entire field on offense and on defense, and the quarterbacks to play better. But with a good coach, you can get that. I'm not touching this, but I could see myself playing Georgia State in a couple of places randomly. I could be like, yeah, I'm catching 10.5. I could see a value there or something like that. I could definitely see that at some point this season.
Yeah, Robert's one of those things that if they had a little bit better of a schedule,
Yeah.
like if they didn't have one of those or two of those, Mississippi, Memphis, and Vanderbilt, then you're like, yeah, I'll take a shot on this. But that's 3 losses that are going to be hard to overcome.
Yeah. And, all right, then you get past that, and what's your first conference game here? JMU, the best team in the conference. Yeah. Congratulations. They need to go on a little bit of a run there. Also, just Ted Hurst sounds like he would be my IP lawyer and not a wide receiver in the Sun Belt. Just a weird name there, but good for him.
For sure.
Top guy in the conference. Not top at anything in the conference. The Thundering Herd of Marshall. Guess what, guys? Tony Gibson. Interesting hire. Not as bad as Tim Beck, because I think Tony Gibson is well thought of, but maybe the smarter cousin of the Tim Beck hire. I think that there's a lot more that you can do. I don't remember watching like NC State games and thinking, how is Tony Gibson not a head coach somewhere? Well, he's well thought of, but come on. And in fairness, that whole program has treaded water for a while, and I think that maybe he's a little suffering from a little brand diminishment. So, all right, he takes over for Charles Huff and went to Southern Miss and took literally all the parts of the program that mattered. I don't know if you caught this, either of you two, but apparently there were more guys that earned letters last year for Marshall that are on the Southern Miss roster than the Marshall roster.
I did see that. Yes.
That's beautiful. Great reporting by Phil. In fact, so many of those guys had already left that they opted out of the Independence Bowl as conference champs. Good job. This is just a dysfunctional program. This is one of those programs identified where it's an inside job. So horribly run. Just the athletic department is just a joke there. These returning talent metrics here and here, it's like the Red Wedding scene. There's nothing there. It's horrible. The new quarterback is Carlos Del Rio Wilson. Yeah, maybe. I would say he's far from proven, and you combine that with a first-time head coach. I've just heard some crazy stories about they've just taken anybody, and they're trying anything and everything in spring practice just to see what works. The new OC this is interesting. The new OC is Rod Smith, who was at Jacksonville State under Rich Rod. I'm pretty sure he was with him at Arizona too. It's just interesting that he winds up here. I liked what he did at both places. I'm just wondering why Rich Rod... I'll put it this way. This isn't a voluntary move, I think. I don't think Mr. Smith said, yeah, I'm passing on to Morgantown to go to Huntington instead here. So I'm wondering what kind of things we got here, and really at the end of the day, how much of the offense is really Rod Smith versus Rich Rod, and is this guy just bringing a CV that without any experience? I don't see the 5.5 now. The market has crushed that to crush the under to minus 165. I still think that's a gift. If I can get an alt line on a 5, I'd hammer that under. This is a year 0 written all over it. I think whoever posted that 5.5 just wasn't understanding the rules of the game here. I see it. I haven't run my whole metrics yet, but I see it closer to like 2 or 3. I don't see any game that they cannot lose for starters. There's no gimmies here at all. That Eastern Kentucky, but I wouldn't say that they can't lose that game. I don't know FCS, but we're at year 0 here. So I'm going to take a long look at the under 5.5 here, or even 5 if I can get it. Am I just being too tough on a tough situation, or do you think it's well-founded, Josh?
Yeah, I'd pick them to be last in the conference personally. So I don't think it's being too harsh. I just... Look, not only are they not good, but then they got to play JMU. They got to play Louisiana. Those are 2 of the tougher teams
you
in
get
the
Texas
conference.
State across the division,
Texas State. Yeah. You just are getting a bunch of teams that you don't want to play in conference. And they start off with Georgia. Who knows who gets hurt in that game?
I haven't thought about, just like who gets hurt. Yeah, they're not winning that. Missouri State, I'm strangely bullish on in a weird way that they can really pass the ball. Now, who knows how that translates over the season. How that translates against this mess of a defense, I think, is a lot more favorable. They might be in a really rough spot here. In Middle Tennessee State, they have a quarterback, which I don't know. I don't know your feelings on Del Rio Wilson, but best, that's probably a draw for the third.
Right. Yeah, he's not great.
Yeah. Robert, didn't Del Rio Wilson, wasn't he at one point a Gator? Does that sound right? Not that he
No, he didn't start, but I think he was like a backup or something.
Yeah,
that sounds
not like he
right.
kept Anthony Richardson on the bench or anything.
No. I don't.
So,
let's see here.
I think he came in and played like a game, didn't he? Weren't they like deep in their bag against Florida State that one year?
That would have been the really bad.
Max Brown came in. Maybe it was that. I don't know. Max Brown, who's not even sniffing at anything at Charlotte.
Yeah. No, it's not particularly good. I think it's been a while since we've seen him on a field. New is the operative term there. New quarterback is operative.
Yeah.
Just quarterback.
I did a pretty thorough takedown to here. Do you have any reason to think that there's any hope this season? Who knows what Gibson can be long term, but it's just a rough spot.
Yeah, it's rough, right? You basically had a beloved head coach who took pretty much the entire program with him in a lateral move, which screams, I don't want to be here. Like, again, that's the thing, right? Like, you're moving from one Sun Belt program to an arguably worse position Sun Belt program. That doesn't scream confidence in your program. The defense is a huge problem. Offensive line, a problem as well. And quarterback, no idea what we're getting there. Ryan cleaned out as well, too. A lot of that, actually, that's just transferred. Not even graduation. So, yeah, it's a problem. There's a lot of problems here.
Yeah. All right. You looked like you're going to say something, Josh. No?
Nah, I'm just looking at the depth chart, and I'm like, wow. Tony Mathis Jr., who was like at Houston like 3 years ago and couldn't sniff the field. Antonio Harmon, who was like tight end at one time, experimenting at Mississippi State as your wide receiver too. Like, this just isn't going to be great.
Yeah, in fairness to Gibson, when you lose that much, you can't really be picky. You almost feel through, like, what don't we need from the portal? So, okay. Yeah, a little bearish on 2025 version of Marshall. All right, over to the Western Division. Phil has the Louisiana Raging Cajun taking the West. I'm not sure if I agree. Michael DeSormo has won me over. I think I had Louisiana. No, I had Texas State winning the West, but I liked this team last year. They had the top passing game, Apex plus a 134. That's a lot when you're facing low-rated defense. You've really got to be doing some damage to get an opponent just an Apex plus a 134 there. New quarterback Walker Howard. I'll ask you about him, Josh, since you're kind of our guy here on that. So they had two good receivers that kind of led the way last year with Lance Legendre, who graduated. Terrence Carter went to Texas Tech. That's tough. A lot of new pieces to the passing game here is a concern. Now, I remember what really impressed me about DeSormo was in 2000, I think it was 23, he actually had to start 3 different quarterbacks in that season. They all had apexes over 100, so I think this guy really knows how to run an offense. But this is... there's a lot of a rebuild here. The season win total is 7.5. If I look compared to some of these other teams, they've taken a more reasonable approach. Rice, good. McNeese, great. Eastern Michigan, awesome. Missouri, okay, cash your check. I think this is a much more navigable schedule. You've got probably pretty reasonably 3 wins out of those 4. Getting to 7.5. Let me see. Who do they get from the other side? They get Marshall, which is a really nice draw. James Madison, not a nice draw. So I think maybe the 7.5. I'm changing my mind here. I think they're probably a little bit undervalued. As I talk through it, I like DeSormo above a few of the coaches that he's going against here. Josh, tell me about Walker Howard. I know that was a name. I think he was he an LSU commit before he was at Ole Miss, or was this my note wrong here, or what?
Yeah, I mean, he was at LSU commit. I think he was at LSU, then went to Ole Miss. I could be wrong, but
okay.
Yes, definitely had connections to LSU. And look, he was a guy that people are really high on coming out of high school. I just don't think he ever really developed beyond his high school days, but that's going to work in the Sun Belt. work at
Yes.
Louisiana for sure. Lance Legendre, he is another former Maryland quarterback.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the 7 years ago, pre-COVID for sure. But anyways, Walker Howard, yeah, I think he's gonna be able to come in. You got Shelton Sampson coming in at wide receiver, coming from LSU as a former 4-star. Again, these guys, they didn't pan out at LSU, but they'll probably do great at Louisiana Lafayette. So I like that, and I think their running game is going to be really good with Elijah Davis and Zylan Perry. So there's a lot here to still. They're one of those offenses that they're, there's nothing that's boom, but it's all really good. And I think when it comes to that, like, you got a team that's going to be very solid and lost some pieces, but I ultimately think they'll be okay because I do think that DeSormo has proven himself to be a pretty good coach.
Yeah.
He's one of the rare hires. He's one of the rare. They passed it down from
Napier.
From Napier, and it's worked out. Hopefully, there's not a third generation of that. But
that's what'll fall apart. Here's the thing. If this is really good for Louisiana, I don't think like he's good enough to go like 12-0 and 11-1 in back-to-back seasons and be the hot name. I think he'll probably be there a long time.
Yeah,
which is a good fit for them. Okay, not to spoil it. So I guess Robert, I'm liking Louisiana, but not in love with. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I don't love it. I think it's not bad. Again, new quarterbacks coming in from Ole Miss. Again, you're not gonna put Jackson Dart on the bench. That's pretty clear. But again, he just came in a couple of places, 2 games, 75 yards. That's very clearly relief duty in a blowout, right? That's nothing. That's like a couple series here or there, right? That's not a start. But that is concerning. Again, losing a lot of receiving yards in the portal. That's not great either. But offensive line holding up pretty well, defense holding up pretty well as well. So again, this team should be competitive. But at the same point in time, there's a lot of okay, yeah, it's competitive, but how competitive, right? That's the thing. It's like, okay, this should be one of the better teams, but are they the best team in the Sun Belt West, right? Are they the best team in the West? I don't know if they are the best team in the West. I think I'd rather probably take a shot on, say, a Texas State, which we'll talk about in a second, but they will be competitive. If they won the West, I would not be surprised. But it's just the fact that I just think this might be a little bit of a down year for them. Again, it's hard to replace a quarterback, right? It's not easy. You don't know what you're going to get with some of these transfer guys. So they will be a good team. They're going to be there, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to win the West with that.
Yeah, the way you've described it, I guess, as you were talking about it, it came to me as like this sounds in a 10 horse race. They're the quote lukewarm favorite. It's okay. Somebody has to be favored, but they're going to be like 5-2 or 3-1. Definitely not short odds on them, but you can definitely see the case for him.
Yeah, I do think one thing about Walker Howard that I do think is positive is he was at LSU, and when he was there, the OC was the guy at Denbrock. That's at Notre Dame now. Mm-hmm. And then you have Lane Kiffin that saw something in Walker Howard too. Those are two guys that really know how to identify talent at the QB position. It does make me feel like I think Howard could be an upgrade over what they had last year at the QB position. Although I do think they have some hits at the wide receiver position that could ultimately affect his potential there.
Are you saying that you'd rather have that background than Mr. Value playing for Pat Narduzzi and his keen quarterback eye? Yes. Okay. Very fair. Yes. All right. Robert just spoke of these guys as display my T-shirt proudly. Texas State Bobcats. I had them as the top-rated team in the conference last year. They just found a way to win games. Typically it was like they just stopped playing about halfway through the third quarter. Not great. I don't know why or how, but they made that a habit. New quarterback is Keldrick Luster from SMU. We'll ask Josh about that in a moment here. Robert, you might remember this name. In 2022, Tyron Smith was, for a lot of that season, in our top 10. Ryan at UTEP before, what's his name? Scotty Wald went in there and murdered that program. Not that they were awesome before, but he had a great season at UTEP. Yeah, they're starting over on defense. I this coaching staff. They're proven. They bite off a big sandwich and a half here between playing at UTSA and Arizona State. They should handle Eastern and Nichols with no problem. Gun to my head, I'd probably take the over, especially if I'm getting a little plus money on that. But I have no idea about this Keldrick Luster, and this is a team that kind of hangs its head on its offense. So, Josh, what do you know about Keldrick Luster? You're the one, just to remind everybody, who told us, Kevin Jennings. Actually, you told us that Preston Stone was actually a serious at SMU when he was replacing. Who was that guy that didn't SMU's quarterback go to Wisconsin?
Yeah, Tanner.
Mordecai. Yeah,
Mordecai,
and I was worried. And you said, yeah, no, Preston Stone is fine. He was more than fine. So I trust you specifically as it relates to Texas guys. What do you know about Keldrick Luster?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the starter. So
Really? Okay.
I think Brad Jackson, who was the backup, he came in and played, ran the ball quite a bit last year. He's the guy that I think is the projected slight favorite right now. And look, Brad Jackson can run the ball. I don't know if he can pass the ball yet because we haven't really seen him do it much. And honestly, I think GJ Kenny's good enough of an offensive mind to build his game plan around the strengths of his team. But I don't know if it's going to be passing the ball this year. I mean, you have Chris Don, Bo Sparks, Tyron Smith, your top 3 wide receivers. I think they're all under 5'9", which could boast well for like speed guys. Look, that's what they did at Incarnate Word, right? With GJ Kenny back in the day. Joey Hobert was not a big guy, but that's just a lot of like small dudes to be depending on. And Brad Jackson, I don't even know if he can pass the ball. GJ Kenny we trust, right? I do think that their running game with Lincoln Paré and Greg Burrell could be pretty good this year. I could see them leaning on that more with Brad Jackson too, sprinkling in almost like a Rich Rod shotgun spread RPO, maybe throw it around. I could see Kenny doing more of that this year. So I don't know, man. I'm interested. I do trust DJ. He's done it no matter where he's been. He's known as an offensive genius. He's one of the hottest names in coaching, but when you have 40% returning production on both sides of the ball, that just feels tough to replace ultimately.
Yeah, let me push back on that a little bit. This guy made it happen in year 1. People forget like just how horrible they were before he came. Like, look, he didn't take them to a bowl in year 1, but I think maybe 5 or 6 games in this first season.
Yeah, I think they went 5-7.
Yeah, so I think this is just like a coach, like you said, can improvise around what he's got. Am I way overrating just what Tyron Smith might mean? He was really good at UTEP. Now, I know that was like a prior lifetime.
Yep. I don't know what's happened the last couple of years, to be quite honest. I mean, between Cincinnati, right, and then he went back to UTEP. He transferred back to UTEP and then did nothing.
Scotty Walden happened to him there, and he just,
yeah.
I was not a fan of that.
But I do think they had a good passing game, though. In this last year, they had two wide receivers that were decent. I don't know. Yeah.
And what kind of curve are you grading on? Just, not make this a UTEP pod, but
but they threw the ball and they caught the ball. I don't know. I just think that Tyron Smith, I thought Tyron Smith was awesome, and for him to just disappear for 2 straight years makes me a bit concerned about his ability to return and be good. But if anybody can pull it out, it's GJ Kenny. Again, this is just I trust GJ. Everything else around me looks like the building is falling, and so I'm just going to trust GJ.
Okay, Robert, I've got some questions here. There's some question marks, so I'm not sure how these guys line up against Louisiana. I got question marks in both programs. I don't know. What you mentioned this team maybe as a preference to Louisiana. You think so?
It's just a pure play on the coach, right? We've seen this coach like an insane turnaround in year 1, right? This is a team that in his first game as head coach of Texas State, they took down Baylor as 27-point underdogs, and that was I remember that being an insane game with this insane 42-31 shootout in that game, and we were like, wow, this team is like legit. And last year they were okay. They did have some losses, but I'll let you know who those losses are here. Just looking through it, they lost to Arizona State. They were a 1-point favorite to Arizona State in week probably 3 or 4 of the season. That team won the Big 12. right? That's the
They
thing.
actually they
So
led that game too, didn't they?
yeah,
Yeah, they did.
probably they lost by 3, so they left another game. Next week they lost to Sam Houston State as 10-point favorites. That's a team that went to the Conference USA championship game. So that's or no, oh no, they didn't. It was the championship game was Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, but Sam Houston was very close in there. They're clearly the third best team in that conference, I
Yeah,
believe.
sorry, you're correct. Yeah.
So yes, but again, okay, and then they actually beat Troy, which apparently is hard to do in this conference for some reason, and like they took care of business against a lot of teams. They lost to Louisiana, which again is the number one team in the conference. Lost to Old Dominion, and then they lost to Georgia State, which badly cost them. But like outside those two losses that I highlighted, 2 of their 4 losses do not look that bad at all now in hindsight. When you're like, that's the Big 12 champion and one of the top teams in Conference USA, right? Yes, they are starting over on quarterback and a lot on the defense. This is not a particularly high octane offensive conference as we've seen. So a lot of people are really starting over from scratch on offense, along with Louisiana for that matter as well. I guess they play Arizona State again. I'm not sure exactly why. I guess maybe they put the home and home with Arizona State. But no, if there is a team that's going to take down Louisiana, it's probably going to be Texas State. I think they will probably be the one that could do it. We've seen 2 years of 8-4 from Kinney here. If he's going to break out this, like it's got to be like this year or next year. There's got to be a breakout soon. Where they're like he's improved the program. We've seen a really. I believe in this offense. This offense has been really good the last couple of years. I think if they can get the offense back up there and they can figure out the defense, this team might be able to take down Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm just looking here too. Who do they grab in across the? They got James Madison and Mitchell, so they got like the split also, the good and the bad. All right, we're gonna move on. Josh, you were just a true gentleman, and I want you to take off the nice guy facade here because I'm gonna make a case here, and if I'm too much, you need to just blatantly say too much. This team's gonna win the West. It's basically a lift and drop from Huntington to where are these guys?
Hattiesburg.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, to Hattiesburg. I was basically murdering Charles Huff until he found a quarterback and basically said, why don't you have a mouthful of this? And I believe 110% in it now. He has the top returning quarterback in the Sun Belt in Braylon Braxton. Blake Anderson, that's interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. Let's just say it didn't go well in Logan for Mr. Anderson. I think this is a smart move in that you get a guy that's pretty much overqualified but being paid by his former employer. So you can get a lot of wisdom for low cost on your end here. This is interesting in terms of the offensive line. Now, we're starting over and that's not a problem because this team was so bad last year. So I have a starter from Eastern Michigan. I have a guy that started at Utah State, who I'm pretty sure Blake Anderson is familiar with. 2 FCS starters and a guy who did not play at South Carolina. That's probably my biggest concern about the immediate situation here. 14 players on Phil Steele's depth chart are from Marshall. So that's not even the guys that are just not even filling things out. The one thing, going back to my second point here, this was a team that was unlucky statistically. Now, I don't even know what luck metric we use because there's basically nothing left from this program. And if you remember at the Marshall was actually lucky. So does this program regress? Does Charles Huff regress? Do they both regress and it means nothing? 4.5 is stupid. Now wisely the market has hammered that, but I guess that they just don't move these totals anymore. They just adjust the juice. That seems to be how these markets work now. I clearly like this. Like I said, I like this team to win the West. There's enough faults in the teams ahead of these two. These guys have, I'm going to say, a pretty much proven head coach. They have definitely a proven quarterback in this conference. They have a lot of proven players. Yeah, it's a lot of turnover, but that's the life in this conference, and I think that they're as poised as any to do it. I don't know. Am I too optimistic and just overlook the hurdles here, Josh?
Now, I wish I could push back on you, but look, I think Charles Huff has earned the benefit of the doubt, right? And bringing over Braylon Braxton, who he had success with at Marshall, is a good move. And look, if you're going to have a bad offensive line, you want to have a guy that can move around, right? And create on his own. Look, Braylon Braxton, I believe, was also at Tulsa when they had a pretty bad offensive line there back in the day, or at least I remember him scrambling around quite a bit. So, I think that's the type of quarterback that you want and that type of system. Look, I'm a Blake Anderson fan. I know like in the CFF community, you know that Blake Anderson's going to have a top outside wide receiver. So, look, Micah Davis coming in from Ole Miss. He was at Air Force before that. He was a deep threat. You got Braylon Brown coming in. He's from Ole Miss. Elijah Metcalf. We know what he did at Marshall. And there's all sorts of opportunities here, I think, for this passing game to be pretty good. Braylon Braxton's not the best passer in the world, in my opinion, but I think he's going to be good enough and serviceable enough for this passing game to be pretty good. I think Blake Anderson's going to bring us a floor to this team offensively that I'm really intrigued to see. I think you're right. This 4.5 win total is way too small.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of something, too, because it ended so horribly at Utah State. But his first year, I believe he had Utah State in the conference title game.
Yeah.
And that team scored like it seemed like once they got it, they were scoring 45 points every freaking week. And they absolutely housed, boy, talk about a coaching mismatch, Brady Hoke's Aztecs in the conference title game. There's a lot to like here. Robert, you've sold your soul to G.J. Kenny here. You regretted it after hearing my case for the Eagles? Golden Eagles.
So here's the thing. I believe this team will definitely not be as bad as last year. That's a very low bar to clear. Again, this is a team that had struggled for many years, even in like peak Frank Gore, when he was peak on this team and basically carrying this team, and then he left, and then this team just absolutely fell, just completely collapsed. 1-11 last year. I think they fired their head coach midway through the season, if I'm not mistaken. Again, it's another classic one where they cover the spread that week and then they fire their coach. I was like, they do it. It's a weird thing. I swear, every time they're like, their coach covers the spread, and they fire the coach. I'm like, I mean, you should have fired him anyways. But like, why? Like, he just covered the spread. He did a good thing. But anyways, no, this will be improved. This team will be improved. Hard to see how it's not going to be improved. Again, one of the better returning quarterbacks in the Sun Belt. That's a positive. Defense is it needs some help, but again, you're bringing a lot of transfers in, so that should help that as well. I think they should be competitive. I will still take Texas State though. I think the Marshall team had been good but not great for several years, and I think there's a possibility that maybe they got a little bit lucky last year that led them to get the win last year. I don't know if you could just take an entire program, port it to another school, and then still be the best. I think this could take a couple years to build up. I think Southern Miss probably has more resources than Marshall. I'm not sure specifically how much more, like how to quantify that more, but it's probably a bit more. Could this team get eventually back to being a good team? Yes, but I think for right now, I think this is we're stuck in the okay, they'll be competitive, but they're not going to be the best team, and I don't think they're going to win the West. No.
All right, difference of opinion, finally. I love it. One reason I like this, and especially the over 4.5, is like when we get to this next group of teams, there's just the bottoms of both these divisions is just such a mess to untangle here. If you want to bet on Major Applewhite, awesome, go at it. Please just bet in every pool that I'm betting in, because I want to go against your money. They got crushed in graduation in terms of their Ryan, their quarterback Zach Pyron. Now look, yeah, Georgia Tech is a big step up versus the Sun Belt, but I'd like a little more than a 35 apex there. Fluff Bothwell, not an easy name to say. He departs from Mississippi State. Supposedly the running game should take a step back. Now, apparently their other guy was pretty good too, and he remains there. And they do keep pieces that are offensive line, so maybe the run game stays intact. This defense is young. If I look at the non-conference here, hey, Tulane and Auburn. Good job, guys. And North Texas. I don't know. You better ready to play some defense there, because that's not a fun one. This 6.5, I don't get. The over getting crushed even more so. They're overvalued. I just don't know if they're playably overvalued, because the bottom of this conference is it's all just a morass here. And I don't like to bet, into the traffic jams as it is. Robert, I'll ask you, do you find more to like or dislike against, about South Alabama than me?
Yeah, that apex is really concerning. You don't want to see a 35. Like, if it was like 75, okay, I could buy that. That maybe you could say, okay, maybe in the Sun Belt it's 100. But a 35, that's really tough. Again, lost a lot to graduation. The defense has some problems as well. again, we saw this team really good a couple of years ago, but then with the new coach, they technically took a lateral move, but based on what they had lost and what they still had, it was basically like they could have done better, but they underperformed what they should have had. And then I think this year might be a falling out year for this team. This team was nowhere near as good as we had seen it a couple of years ago. Yeah, I'm probably gonna take the under on here. This seems like they might be a bit overvalued here. There's still a little bit of that really good South Alabama team from a couple years ago still on this. Yeah.
Josh, two questions to throw it to you on this. You would know this better than Robert or I. Tell us about Zach Pyron and whoever is replacing Fluff Bothwell at running back.
Yeah. So if Zach Pyron's the starter, then we're all in trouble. I'll just say that.
Okay.
He's not starting. It'll be Bishop Davenport, who's a guy that came in from the transfer portal from Utah State last year. I don't know.
Couldn't beat out Bryson Barnes?
Phil Steele. Oh, no, 2 years ago. He was before Bryson Barnes. Bishop Davenport actually is a guy that I really like. He's actually a kid from Texas, QB. He's a dual threat kid. Went to Utah State and then went down there to South Alabama. Backed up Gio Lopez, who had a pretty good year, I thought, last year at South Alabama. A little bit up and down, but made his way to UNC, right? But I think Bishop Davenport's actually pretty good. He can run the ball a little bit, and he can throw the ball. I'm intrigued. Look, this offense has Kentrell Bullock coming back. That's a running back that you mentioned. Yeah. And he pretty much, him and Bothwell basically split down the middle carries. And he's a guy in the CFF community, Kentrell Bullock, that we actually really like this year. I think he could be interesting. And then Devin Voisin is a top wide receiver returning there. He was not the top one from last year, but he had an injury. Took him a year to come back from his injury, and he could be interesting there. So I'm not as down on them, at least offensively, South Alabama. I'm also a little bit intrigued by Paul Petrino. He was at Idaho back in the day. If you remember him, and he had some pretty good offenses there while he was there. He's got the Petrino blood for sure. I don't know how much he's really going to be calling plays versus Major Applewhite, but I think it's at least interesting that he's in the room with Applewhite. But yeah, I think Bishop Davenport actually gives me more hope than Zach Pyron. I would not. Is Pyron who Phil Steele has as his started?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to go against Phil Steele, but if Pyron starts, then yeah, everything you said is true. I just don't think that's actually going to be the case. I'd be shocked if Pyron ends up getting a start.
All right, not to be a dick here, but to be a dick here. Who was that horrible quarterback at Iowa that transferred to USF State? Was it Spencer?
Spencer Petras?
Yeah. So you're talking about the guy that couldn't beat out Spencer Petras at Utah State.
I think that was actually Bryson Barnes.
Okay.
Because Petras transferred in this last year.
Oh, it's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
so Bishop Davenport's from 2 years ago.
Okay. All right.
He still couldn't beat out Cooper Lagas, so it's not much better.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You threaded the needle, though, of really bad quarterbacks. All right. Robert, I'm much more bearish on the Jaguars than Josh is. What do you think here?
Yeah, I said already, but yeah, I think they're pretty overvalued. I think this might be, again, we'll have to see the quarterback situation, but I think we could see the bottom falling out a little bit on this year.
Okay, so you're wrong, Josh. No, I'm kidding.
We'll see.
A little disagreement here. All right, I think we're going to agree on this. Jared Parker, Sunbelt, come on, guys, do better. I don't know why he got this head coaching position. We just laughed and had a good merry old time talking about this one. And hey, lo and behold, guess what? The offense went from a power rating of positive 3.6 to negative 6.7 in just one season. Congratulations. I'm trying to figure out this Goose Crowder thing. I don't know, and I didn't see these games, but he had 2 starts. In both starts, he started at Memphis, and he threw less than his backup. He had 7 passes versus 19 for Matthew Caldwell. Then he started also against ULM. He threw 1 pass, and his backup, Tucker Kilcrease, had more passes. I don't even know what to read of that, but it just doesn't sound great. This was the worst pass defense in the division last year. I've found no reason. I guess last year they weren't as absolutely horrible as I anticipated, but I can tell you, when your head coach is a former offensive coordinator and in the offense takes that big of a step back, I don't think that's a good sign for the long term or even medium term aspects of this program. Not to spoil the MAC preview, there's a lot to like about Buffalo, and there's a lot of players returning to Buffalo. And I've got my eyes squarely on Troy at Buffalo. I think that's going to be a coaching mismatch. You've got this buffoon against a real proven guy in Pete Lembo here. Season win totals at 5.5. Sure, I think they're overvalued, but I don't know if it's better. Josh, do you have any insight on what the hell is this Goose Crowder thing is, where he's starting but he's not throwing the most passes?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Look.
Sorry, I'm sorry to ask you to explain Jared Parker, but it just...
I don't know, man. Look.
All right, is it as dumb as it looks, probably, I guess, if that's the question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
I don't even know what they're going to do. They got Rod Thomas at wide receiver. That's probably their best hope. But I don't know, man. Look, Troy deserves whatever they're going to get with Parker. We'll just say that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You think that they're just going to get two mouthfuls here when they're at Buffalo?
Yeah, for sure. Buffalo, okay. I'm with you on that. They look like they're going to be a really good team.
Yeah. So, okay. So, all right, Robert, so if we consider at Clemson, Memphis, and at Buffalo pretty safely as 3 losses, that means that then the other 9 games, they can only lose 3 more. And let me see who they pick up here. Texas State, which is not obviously Texas State and Louisiana in division. Who do they get from the East? Georgia State, which is okay. And
Southern Miss.
Old Dominion.
ODU.
All right. But okay. Yeah, I can't see the overhitting. I don't know. I almost don't want to show Jared Parker I care enough to bet on the under.
You've got Clemson, Memphis, Buffalo, Texas State, Louisiana, Southern Miss. That's 6 right there. And then of that, it's Georgia State, Old Dominion, Arkansas State. Oh, you got Louisiana Monroe. So there's a very clear path to a 3 or 4 win season here. It's not a particular stretch to see that. And under 5.5 is, you actually, depending on the book, I'm seeing plus 100, minus 110, or depending on the book. So that's a pretty nice. I like that line. That's not bad at all. So I think I might play that. Again, it's bad, right? This is a team that the 2 years prior went 12-2, 11-3, and then went 4-8. And we kind of know why. This team was very weird. It lost a lot of games it probably should have won, but then also won games they should have lost, because they beat Coastal, which they probably should have lost, and they beat Georgia Southern, which they probably should have lost as well. They didn't cover the spread against an FCS team, which is not great, but they also lost to Nevada and to ULM last year already, pretty embarrassingly. So there's not a lot of, oh wow, this team was so good last year. It was pretty bad last year, and I think maybe we should kind of say, okay, this is not the same Troy team that's from a couple of years ago. And I think even with this line, I think there's still a lot of that. Oh, but Troy's good, and Troy is not good. No, Troy is not good.
I want to go back to this point, but in a different context here. The fact that the offense took that big of a step back, let's not forget who the coach was before he came over. A defensive guy in Summerall. He was a linebacker coach, I think, at Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
You lose that as your head coach, and your offense loses basically 10 points a game. The ineptitude speaks for itself here. But I'm sure Goose Crowder will fix everything. Good luck to you people in Troy. What a horrible hire. All right. Speaking of horrible hires, hey, guess what? Butch Jones got extended. Congratulations. Now, they did have an 8-5 record, which, I mean, I didn't even have to look. I could just tell you, hey, good luck abounds here. There is regression that's going to happen. Jalen Rayner, look, I feel stupid for not seeing this. His apex dropped almost in half from 135 to 74. As someone who backed Texas State last year, this team, I won't say this team bothered me as a potential to win the division, but as the one to be the stupid loss that would cost Texas State the division. I don't even know if they beat Texas State. I don't think they did. But, they had, with this guy and that receiver, Corey Recker, they had the talent to do some damage. Now, again, this is just a team that was lucky. If we look at these metrics I got here right here, defensive apex is 11th in the conference. The run game is 13th. The total defensive rating is 13th. Butch Jones has never, ever figured it out of defense at this program, and he's starting over again. He's not going to fix it. Season win total is 5.5. I've made my case for Georgia State was there are some pieces that I can hold on to. There are pieces to hold on to here, and Jalen Rayner was good 2 years ago, and Corey Rucker is obviously a talent, and they kept him there. Good for him. Good for them, not good for him. But my gosh, you got Butch Jones in charge here, and you're stuck with him now, Red Wolves. Congratulations. If they do it, it's despite the head coach, and I don't like that because I see 3 head coaches at the top of this division that are like leaps and bounds ahead of Butch Jones. Robert, am I being too hard on the Red Wolves here?
No, this to me just absolutely screams got lucky, got the extension, and just like immediately plummet back to earth. This is gonna be like we regret this in a year from now extension. And we've seen this a lot of times where it's like, oh yeah, he had one good season, so let's extend for like 4 more, and then he sucks the next year, and then you're like, oh, how can we get out of this? When can we get out of this contract? But you have to keep him around for at least another 2 years. So this is the thing. This to me just screams gonna turn bad. And I don't know where exactly it's going to go bad, but yeah, like that is a very concerning apex there. So we actually had, at one point, I think we had thought that Jalen Rayner could potentially get like a pickup from the portal somewhere. We had thought maybe some ACC school might take a shot at him with a 135 apex, but then that apex basically got halved from 2 years ago to last year. And he was not particularly good. This team was 8-5, but they were very lucky. They've lost significant amounts on defense. I don't like if that's what Jalen Rayner is. Like he's not going to get back to that 135 apex. Could we see an 80 or a 90? Sure, but that's still below average. This just screams to me they got lucky. They give him a massive extension, and now we're just going to see an absolute collapse in this team, and they're going to regret this extension. They're going to regret this extension by November.
Yeah, when I look at this conference, half the teams just make me think that we would do a better job as athletic directors in the conference here. Josh, I'm gonna give you a list of teams here: Central Arkansas, Tulsa, South Alabama, Southern Miss last year, Troy, Georgia State, ULM, and Bowling Green. I believe without Harold Fannin, he did not play in the bowl game. Correct?
I think he did, at least for a half.
Wow. Okay. Is there any win that's even like good of the 8?
Yeah, no, not really. Yeah. It's, you know what's frustrating about Rayner is that I believe his first 2 games of his career were the best games of his career, which it's like, I think that just goes to show the coaching just isn't very good. You know, and
hold on a minute. Are you going to take a shot at Butch Jones here? Come on.
It's just, look, Rayner's, I don't think, a bad quarterback. He's small.
No.
But he's not a bad quarterback. I just think it's bad play calling. It's bad coaching. Look, and again, maybe he's not that good because I think Corey Rucker had like something like a 50% catch rate of his like target share. It's just absolutely crazy. The kid is clearly good. So maybe it's not... I don't know. If I was them, I would just build a whole system around Rayner's legs and then let him air it out a little bit. But they don't do that. They don't let him run the ball, and that's clearly his best asset. It's not as a passer. So I don't know what they're doing, man. And, yeah, they're just going to continue to be inconsistent. They'll win some games, and then they'll lose. They're not going to beat anybody they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't beat.
Yeah, they got Arkansas and Iowa State doing a lot of heavy lifting here, too. They're not going to lose to Kennesaw. That would be hilarious, but they're not that bad. So who do they get in the East here? App State, that's a good draw. And
Georgia Southern.
Boy, talk about a horrible coaching matchup. Clay Helton and Butch Jones. Man, that's just not good for the game of football. Okay, let's get out of here. Last one, according to Phil, the ULM Warhawks. This is my Easter egg here. When they started off, I think they started off like 5-1 or something like that. Yeah, they started off 5-1 with the only loss to Texas. We thought that it was smoke and mirrors. They did not win another game. They weren't as bad as they weren't as lucky as I originally thought. You know, they with literally 0 luck over the season. And 5 wins is a big step up for this program, who had just been in a rough spot for a while here. Offensive rating improved a little, which I like. I also like that they do retain a lot of their Ryan oops, here we go, from last season. Did not really lose a lot to the portal. Now, they didn't have a lot to lose, but still. I like that you've got an offensive coach here who actually did, not a first-time head coach. Remember, he actually coached at UAB, did a pretty good job for his first time. This is going to be like just for giggles and fun play. Based on this, Aiden Armenta, he redshirted in New Mexico in 2023. The fact that he is going to be the starter this year until Josh tells me, no, Phil Steele is wrong again. I like that he followed Vincent from New Mexico. I did a little breakdown of what he did last year. When he played good defenses, defensive apex plus of less than 100, so better than average, his apex was 29. When he played the horrible pass, not even horrible, the below average pass defenses, apex of 104, and this is in his first year starting in a year zero situation. Like I said, they have the highest retention of their Ryan of any team in the Sun Belt. Now, none of these guys had one over 150, so it's not like they kept any gems. Their defensive rating improved. I like this too. Their defensive coordinator named Ernest Hill, he was the head coach at McGill-Tulane Catholic High School. I see an acid test here, and I'm tough on this team because Scotty Walden was so just frustrating at UTEP. I'm interested to see what happens here. 4.5, I can see a win at St. Francis. I'm expecting a win here. I can see a win over Butch Jones. I can see a path here to over 5. I don't know if it's bettable. I like this Aiden Armenta in year 2, which is completely under the radar until Josh says, like, everybody in his clan of fantasy guys knows about this kid. There's some angles to just for a small play here on the over. So, first of all, Josh, tell me I'm wrong on Aiden Armenta, please.
I can't do that, but I think the engine to any Bryant Vincent offense is the running game, right? Look, you got Ahmad Hardy that came in as a true freshman last year and absolutely exploded onto the scene, and finds himself at Missouri now. They have brought in a ton of transfer running backs, and then a bunch of them transferred out because there's a kid named Zach Palmer-Smith that came in from Richmond, and I think he rushed for 1,400 yards at Richmond and 10 touchdowns. The kid's got the goods. He's a redshirt senior, very good running back, and if he isn't the guy, then they brought in a high 3-star named Deshaun Ford that's basically like, hey, I'm going to take the Ahmad Hardy path to trying to take this over as a true freshman. So they got 2 really good running backs here that I think they'll be able to lean on. And look, Bryant Vincent is one of those guys. He knows his system and he knows the personnel to fit. This is similar to Bob Chesney at JMU. When you find these type of coaches that are actually really good, they tend to squeeze out as much juice as they can out of the team that they have. And I think, at least offensively, Bryant Vincent will be able to have another good year. When you play Alabama and then Northwestern, maybe it is tough to get to 5 wins, but I could see them winning some of these toss-up games where the teams are pretty similar to them on their schedule. So I don't think they're the worst team in the conference, I guess is what I would say.
Okay, geez. Okay, it's not as bullish as me. Fair to say, though, they're at a coaching advantage when they're playing Arkansas State and Coastal and Troy. Totally. There's 3 right there. All right. So, Robert, I'm in not love with ULM here. Are you not as taken as I am with them?
No, I actually do like that. The fact that in his first year here he went 5-7, that was almost functionally impossible, right? This is a team that went 2-10 the year before. And again, when we talk about storied college football programs, that's not ULM. That is 100% not ULM, right? This is not a storied program for all of college football. They went 0-10 in 2020, right? And then just 4-8 the 2 years after. This is a team that very rarely makes a bowl, if any. This is one of the lowest of the low places in college football, and to jump in first year and basically almost get to a bowl game at 5-7. What a just insane turnaround. Okay, yes, they started strong and fell apart, but they took down the Sun Belt. They took down James Madison, one of the top teams in the Sun Belt. They took down Southern Miss, which doesn't sound like much, but considering where they were, that's actually not bad. Like, they're not bad. They're not a bad team. I think they maybe were they came out a little too hot last year. I think they slowed down a little towards the end of the season. But honestly, this is a team that, like, I think 4.5 is undervalued. I think that should probably be higher. That line should be a lot closer to a bowl game. And again, he did all this with that quarterback, right? He did with the quarterback rank with an APEC like 55, right? So this is the thing. Like, if you, and give him more time, give him the like another whole off season, the ability to add the players he wants, the ability to let those players develop a bit more. This team could be sneakily good. They burned out a little. They burned a little too bright, too fast last year, but give them an off season to develop. I think this team could be legitimate. I think this team is definitely worth an over at 4.5 because, and just mathematically too, we're talking about all these teams here in the Sun Belt. We're all like, this team's not as good as we say. This team's not as good as we say. Someone's got to get those wins. And if you've just got a good coach, he could scoop up a lot of those wins.
Yeah.
We're talking about Arkansas State not being good. We're talking about Coastal not being good. Troy not being good. South Alabama not being good. That's 4 right there. And again, they have an FCS team on. They're playing an FCS team in St. Francis. Not a particularly good CUSA team in UTEP. Northwestern, don't even know what that's going to be. That's a question mark as well. So, you're looking at potentially getting the 4.5 in just the conference play, like the 5 wins in just conference play, let alone the fact that you're playing an FCS team and then UTEP and then potentially Northern. There's a chance for them to get this a couple different ways. So, yeah, I think they're definitely worth a play on the over 4.5.
It does feel like 5 through 12 in this conference is pretty much can beat each other on any given week, right?
Which, yeah, and the other side of that would be, I think there's, like I said, there's a lot of open space for one or two of those teams just to run up a lot of wins against that morass. I see this is kind of like the analog to Georgia State in the West, like some pieces to line. You can see a narrative because you've got pieces and going against some questionable coaches and all that other stuff. There's a path.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, you look at the schedule and you go, okay, you got Southern Miss, Texas State, and Louisiana on the road. Those are probably your 3 toughest games in conference, but at least they're on the road.
Anyways. Yeah, I'd rather take those on the road rather than waste a home on them, and you get all 3 of them.
Yeah, and you get South Alabama, Old Dominion, Troy, Arkansas State, all those at home. I don't know. And then Coastal Carolina, that should be a win regardless of where it's at. But so you looking at that could be 5 wins just in conference. I mean, they could definitely go 5-3.
This wouldn't surprise me that if this team is actually undefeated at home. Not too crazy of an order. Okay, good analysis. We get to our wrap-up questions here. The first one's kind of a zinger, not easy. I will answer this one first because I don't want Robert to steal mine, and I'm going to go with my crutch here. One upset involving a Sun Belt team. Somehow my crutch for this is becoming Missouri State and the Bears. Missouri State is going to beat Marshall. Write that one down. All right. Just what's your upset involving a Sun Belt team here?
Oh, you know what? Let me ask you guys this question. When was the last time that JMU lost to a Power 4 team?
What? God, it would be when they were in FCS then, right? It would have to be.
I think so. I can't remember the last Power 4 team. They beat Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia. So I'm gonna
Louisville in 2022. They lost to Louisville. In 2022. They lost at Louisville, 34-7 as only 7-point underdogs in 2022.
What was the final score?
34-10.
34-10. All right. So I'm gonna pick JMU to actually beat Louisville this year. Does that count as involving a Sun Belt team?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Actually, if I remember correctly, that with the game against Louisville, that was after their star quarterback got injured, I believe, because they were on a run and their quarterback got hurt, I believe, in that year. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that might be right. I don't even know what the line's going to be on that game. It's probably going to be probably double digits, I would imagine, with Isaac Brown coming back. But I think there's some question marks on that Louisville team, and I think JMU. We'll see.
Where is that? Is that game at Louisville or is it at home?
Louisville.
Woof.
At Louisville.
Okay. Second game of the season. I like it. All right.
James Madison.
Might as well call your shot. Might as well call your shot if you're going to call
exactly.
one.
Yeah, no, it's a good. James Madison is what, southwestern-ish Virginia, I think.
Yep.
Somewhere like that. Is it?
Yep.
It's not Richmond. I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
it's in Harrisonburg, Shenandoah Mountains.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, Southwestern, yeah, and then Louisville is just Kentucky, so it's not that far. Yeah, so I like both of those, and we don't have a line for Missouri State versus Marshall, but I kind of want that. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with. Let me just see here. It's two possibilities. I'll let you guys decide which one would be the bigger upset here. ULM versus Troy, or ULM versus South Alabama. Which one? I'm going to go with against Troy. We deem that an upset, yes?
That's a better bet, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but come on. Let's take South Alabama, bro.
All right, South Alabama. We'll go South Alabama,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be, because there was one year when I picked a lot of them, and like half of them ended up being the favorites by the time the game kicked, and like half of them lost. Which is like it was like, oh, this clearly would have been like an 8-point dog, and then there were 3.5-point favorites, and they lost. It's just like we're directionally right. But no, I mean, here's the thing, like I asked about that because like straight up with Troy, they could be favorites against Troy by the time that's a legitimate possibility. South Alabama, probably not, but against Troy, they could be favorites against Troy by the time they play like late October. Yeah, no,
upset today though.
It is an upset today, but I'll do South Alabama, yeah.
Okay, I like it. Which two teams play for the conference title? Robert, you can go first on this one.
Yeah, give me JMU Texas State. Texas State, I think they get their championship berth this year.
Okay. I'm going all in. JMU, and I'm going with Southern Miss.
I love it.
Josh?
Me and Phil Steele we're gonna be friends today. I'm gonna go JMU Louisiana.
Okay.
I just think that the coaching for those two teams are a cut above the rest. Brian Vincent, I do think at ULM is going to do a heck of a job and is going to get them up there, but not quite bold enough to do that at this point.
Yep, fair. I look at the futures on the bottom here. I love JMU here. I'm definitely going to play that. I think they're just clearly the class of this conference. I'm going to put just a little bit on Southern Miss, maybe like a tenth of whatever I put on JMU, just because I think there's value there. And in case they make the path, then I'm properly hedged. Josh, I know that you're a fantasy guy, not a futures guy. Any prices really strike you as super reasonable there you might be enticed by?
Yeah, I think you're calling Southern Miss is a really good one. When you have the coach coming over from the team that just won the conference or got the conference title game, that's not a bad bet at all. Yeah, that's the one that sticks out to me because the other teams that I'd really pick are all there in the plus 650 range, and I don't see that happen. Look, stranger things have happened. Georgia State at 40-1. That's. I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, but holy smokes! Again, like you just look at the personnel on their team. If those guys are actually healthy, those running backs are healthy and live up to their talent, and Ted Hurst, I don't know. This conference is crazy enough that 40-1 is absolutely insane, I think, for Georgia State, personally.
There's not a lot at the top besides the top that you need to get past to be in contention in that division either. Yeah. All right. Robert, any futures here that grab your fancy?
No, I'm just thinking on it, looking at it too, like ULM 33-1 seems a bit high as well. Again, it hates some of those long shots here. We like JMU, like Texas State a little bit, and Louisiana, but we don't like Georgia Southern. We don't particularly like Southern Alabama. Definitely don't like Troy. We don't like App State. Southern Miss, sure. We don't like Coastal. We don't like Arkansas State. We don't like it's like at a certain point, well, we don't like half of these teams. It's just process elimination of who's left. And it's like, they can get 33-1 on one of these, so okay, That's the thing, right? Is take a shot. JMU at 3-1 seems a bit crazy, but I think it's just factoring in the fact of like that it's just so variable. Like, yeah, JMU could randomly lose a game to. I mean, I guess in this case they're penciling it in as Marshall, but it could be it could be a Georgia State or something. Like whatever that other team is, they're probably penciling that in as Marshall, but it's not actually Marshall. Or probably more like
it looks like it's Georgia Southern. Yeah, and I'm very comfortable fading Georgia Southern. To me, that's dead money in the pool.
And there's a lot of value on JMU because again, even if it's, let's say for example, what I suspect is there's going to be something along the lines of, because it's basically JMU, Georgia Southern in the East, and basically everybody else fighting for the West. If JMU makes the championship game, they're going to be favorites, and depending on who it is, probably anywhere from a field goal to a field goal plus a touchdown, probably somewhere in that range. At that point, what you'll JMU will probably be the very clear favorite, probably at least minus 200. So whatever it is, you can hedge it out in the championship game as well, or just be like, whatever, cool, let's go. That's the thing. So there's a lot of value, especially if you think that one of them's going to get, if you think they're going to get to the championship game because you don't believe in Georgia Southern, which we don't, then there's a lot of clear value there, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Robert, Josh, thank you both. Josh, we will be seeing you again on the ACC preview. Robert, I will be seeing you shortly. Thank you all for hanging with us for almost 2 hours. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as much as we did making it. We will talk to you soon when I don't know. Our next preview is to be determined. So until, bye-bye.
See ya.